With his brilliant cinematic talent and rare awareness of ancient Arab history, Syrian director and producer Mustapha Akkad managed to reach the highest peaks of success on Hollywood, embracing international recognition as a filmmaker whose few epic movies became timeless classics. Over his incredible career, he produced innovative works such as Halloween, The Messenger, and Lion of the Desert. These films were all hits, breaking records in the United States and abroad. Mustapha Akkad was born on the 1st of July in 1930 in Aleppo, where he attended a local French school. After Syria achieved independence from the French Mandate in 1946, he completed his secondary education at the American Aleppo College. There, Akkad discovered his passion for acting while taking theater classes. His obsession with movies grew at an early age, and this is why he applied for a scholarship in the United States while he was still 19 years old, with the help of one of his American teachers, enabling him to join the Theater Arts Department of UCLA in America. After graduating, Akkad worked as a production assistant at MGM Studios on a movie called Ride the High Country. He later moved to the CBS News Department and produced his own show As Others See Us. He then formed Akkad International Productions, specializing in documentaries as well as features. The success of one of these early documentaries, Caesar's World, broadcast across the United States, allowed him to open offices for his film company in Beirut, London, and Hollywood. In 1976, Akkad produced and directed his first blockbuster in the Arab world, a film called Al-Risala, or The Message, starring the Egyptian actor Abdullah and Syrian actress Muna Wasif. This film made Akkad a household name in the Arab world. The film traces Islam's beginnings in Mecca and how the first converts were persecuted for their beliefs. Then it moves to depict the exodus to Medina, ending with a triumphant return to Mecca. Akkad chronicles beautifully a number of crucial events such as the Battle of Badr and the Battle of Uhud, two important Islamic events, as the bulk of his plot is narrated from the point of view of marginal individuals such as Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib, the Prophet's uncle. The film's popularity encouraged Akkad to release a version in English entitled Muhammad, the Messenger of God, starring Anthony Quinn as Hamza, the uncle of Prophet Muhammad, and Irene Papas as Hind, wife of Mecca prominent figure Abu Sufyan. It was the first feature film with popular lead characters and actors in cinema history to deal with the sources and roots of Islam.
Whom God chose, and in that we believe.
The movie received high praise and opened in 3,000 theaters across the US. The film tried to present a subtle image of Islam free of ossified stereotypes and perversions which had been in circulation by commercialized Western movies about the Arab history. Akkad affirmed in one of his interviews that he did the Messenger film because, being a Muslim himself who lived in the West, he felt that it was his obligation and duty to tell the truth about a major religion like Islam. It is a religion that has a 700 million following, yet at that time it was so little known about it, which surprised Akkad. He decided he should tell the story differently so as to correct some misconceptions and help bridge the gap with the West.
I did the film because it is a personal thing for me. Besides its production values as a film, it has its story, its intrigue, its drama. Besides all this, I think there was something personal. Being a Muslim myself who lived in the West, I felt that it's my obligation, my duty to tell the truth about Islam. It is a religion that has a 700 million following, yet it's so little known about it, which surprised me. I thought I should tell the story that will bring this bridge, this gap to the West.
Akkad embarked on an ambitious journey to create a truly epic film which depicted nothing less than the life of the Prophet Muhammad and the birth of Islam in the 7th century. It was a decision of unbelievable bravery, taking into consideration the many challenges ahead. He intended the film to be a cinematic lesson on how to transform historical events into thrilling images and scenes. When the film was ready to kick off, some fanatic Americans who claimed to speak on behalf of Islam were outraged by the mere idea of a Hollywood movie on Islam. Objections to the film started to grow in the US. For instance, in Washington, D.C., a group of African American Muslims stormed office buildings and took hostages, threatening violence unless the film was withdrawn from circulation. Akkad negotiated with them, trying to convince them that it was the right thing to do to present the Islamic history from the point of view of a devoted Arab and Muslim intellectual. But it was to no avail. The fanatics, supported by backward regimes in the Arab world like Saudi Arabia, forced him to withdraw the film. He probably realized then that his battle with extremism will be tough and long, especially with the Takfiri terrorists backed by Wahhabi regime like Saudi Arabia, who was the first Arab country to declare its objection to the film. For instance, after filming was underway in Morocco, Saudi political pressure bore fruit and forced Akkad to stop and bear tremendous losses to his expensive Moroccan sets and locations.
النقاش كان على أساس إنه الصورة حرام. أنا هيدي اللي استغربت فيها، على أساس إنه أنا في أمريكا في جامعة كاليفورنيا علموني اللي اخترع نظرية التصوير مسلم حسن بن الهيثم الأندلسي. نعم بالتأكيد. Optic Theory of Photography، وأنا ما كنت أعرفها، علموني في أمريكا في جامعة كاليفورنيا. نعم. نقول الصورة حرام.
He had to move somewhere else, this time to the Libyan desert where he completed filming. But the experience was extremely frustrating, and Akkad often spoke about it with a great sense of bitterness.
Now came the big move, to move to the port of Tripoli. We had tons of clothes and armaments and equipments and vehicles and even horses that we have trained. Of course, Tripoli is not a city that is used to filmmaking. Doesn't have the film facilities, the sound stages, the equipment. So we have to start all over again, to rebuild sets, and above all, to find a base for our equipment. We looked and we found an old warehouse for storage of tobacco, and we turned it into an interior soundstage. We had to soundproof the soundstage, put scaffolding for lights. But then in the end, we had in our hands a good soundstage, as good as any place you find any place.
However, the irony arose many years later when the Pentagon, after the 11 September 2001 terror attacks in Washington, D.C. and New York City, decided to purchase many copies of Akkad's film to help better understand Islam. The funny thing was that the majority of the perpetrators behind the alleged attacks were all Saudis who subscribed to Wahhabi doctrines. Akkad's picture was supposed to shed light on the roots of Wahhabi extremism and enlighten the US policymakers about the danger of terrorism. However, Akkad commented later that even after watching the film, many in the US and the West still didn't understand the truth about Islam.
The one, the only, the classic Halloween.
To quell the controversy and escape from the ever-present threat of jihadists, Akkad switched, for the time being at least, into a different genre, this time horror movies. So in 1978 he produced a film called Halloween with a low budget. The film was inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, starring Janet Leigh. Akkad described Halloween as a movie in which horror is based on suspense. The success of the film led to 7 other sequels, the last of which was released in 2002 in the United States.
I preserve its continuity, I preserve its element. I will keep doing it, and I'll stop at 22. That's what Donald Pleasance said. One of the press were asking him, come on, Donald, you're going to keep doing these Halloweens, all this? He said, no way, I'll stop at 22. So I like to follow his advice.
Halloween, the night he came home.
However, Akkad's passion for Arab history couldn't be postponed any longer. After the success of his Halloween adventure, he decided to indulge in a new experience similar to some degree to his first and the Message film. So, in 1981, he produced and directed his second major hit, Lion of the Desert, which is a thrilling biography of the Libyan nationalist leader Omar al-Mukhtar, who led an armed rebellion against the Italian occupation of Libya and was later executed on the orders of Benito Mussolini in 1932. The film starred Anthony Quinn as Omar al-Mukhtar, Oliver Reed as General Graziani, and Rod Steiger as Mussolini.
We win or we die. And don't think it stops there.
The movie goes back to the early days of 1929 when the Italian dictator appointed General Rodolfo Graziani as his 6th governor to Libya, confident that he would crush al-Mukhtar's rebellion and restore the glories of Imperial Rome. But Omar al-Mukhtar, who led the resistance against the fascists, proved to be too tough to beat, being fully aware of the danger threatening his country. Thus, he decided to be a teacher by profession and a freedom fighter by duty.
Blows that don't break your back, strengthen it. We'll show Graziani some spine.
The Italian army had to use sophisticated weaponry like tanks and aircrafts to destroy Mukhtar's revolution.
it is really the story of two men, the confrontation of two men. Yet each man has his own culture, his own background, his own philosophy, his own creed. So really the story is this confrontation of the two men.
Along the way, the film showed how the Italian occupiers committed atrocities, killing prisoners of war and imprisoning populations in concentration camps by putting thousands of people behind barbed wire.
Why am I pouring troops into a victory I've already won? It's ridiculous. It cannot continue. And it will not continue!
The film also shows how Graziani was only able to achieve victory through deceit, deception, violation of the laws of war, and breaking all moral and human taboos. Al-Aqad was so keen to portray the nationalist leader in a totally different moral light. In one scene, Al-Mukhtar refuses to kill a defenseless young Italian officer, handing him instead the Italian flag to return it. By the end of the film, Al-Mukhtar is captured and tried as a rebel. He was publicly executed by hanging. His eyeglasses are dropped only to be picked up by one of his young disciples as a gesture that the revolution against a foreign occupation will continue until liberation is fully achieved.
خاصة بالأفلام التاريخية يجب أن يكون هناك عنصر التسجيل، عنصر الواقع حتى نعطيه الطابع الحقيقة. معناها اليوم مين بده يقول إنه هذا الفيلم عمر المختار هل هو حقيقة أم إنه هو خيال زي أفلام هوليوود عن العرب؟ لذلك يجب أن حتى في المقدمة وفي أثناء الفيلم واضع بعض الأفلام الإخبارية المصورة في الفترة التاريخية دامجها معها حتى تعطي الانطباع إنه فيلم فيلم تاريخي من الواقع التاريخي.
The film was a true classic, but sadly enough, it proved to be Akkad's last cinematic project as a director. Yet, Akkad's desire to explore yet deeper the Arab history was overwhelming. So in 2001, he began preparations for what he was hoping to be his third epic film called Salah ad-Din. But unfortunately, he lacked the funding, although he toured the Arab world from 2003 to 2005 seeking help. Many backward forces in the Arab world wanted to put hurdles in his way, and even to silence him, first by assassinating his dreams, and later his very existence on earth. On the 9th of November in 2005, Akkad was killed before completing his ambitious project on Salah ad-Din. He was fatally wounded in a terrorist bombing at the Grand Hyatt Hotel in the Jordanian capital, Amman, while attending a wedding with his daughter, who was killed instantly in the attack. Akkad was taken to hospital and later passed away, a victim to Wahhabi terrorism represented by the Saudis who supported Al-Qaeda group, who in turn didn't hesitate to claim responsibility for the attack. The 2005 Amman bombings were a series of coordinated bomb attacks on 3 hotel lobbies that killed 60 more people and injured 115 others.
Mara
Akkad received a hero's funeral in his home country, Syria. Thousands of citizens lined the streets of his birthplace town, Aleppo, to pay respect for him, including prominent Syrian and Arab actors, cabinet ministers, musicians, intellectuals, and writers. The producer's coffin was draped in the Syrian flag and decorated with wreath flowers.
أوها في بيتنا رماني أوها حامضة ولفاني أوها وحلفنا ما نقطفها أوها ليجي مصطفى بالسلامة أوها الله معك الله معك أوها على درب حلب الله معك أوها ولفوك بالعلم السوري أوها يا مصطفى ما أجملك لا 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 زلغتوا لك زلغتوا عنا فيكم الله معك الله معك الله معك.
President Bashar al-Assad posthumously awarded him the Syrian Medal of Honor. He was also honored by his native city of Aleppo, as the Aleppo City Council has renamed a school and a street after him. In 2008, a street in downtown Beirut was renamed after Akkad too. Akkad's tragic death was particularly ironic and bitter because the great director spent most of his life trying to dispel myths and stereotypes associated with Islam, only to fall victim to fundamentalists who claimed to represent Islam. In fact, al-Aqad had always been subject to terrorist threats in the past. The Amman bombings deprived the world of a great artist whose work represented an effective weapon against the massive media machine breeding negative images about Arabs in the United States and elsewhere. Akkad's loss was tremendous, and his cinematic gift is simply irreplaceable. As an artist, he was uniquely passionate about storytelling, being so fond of Arab history, always reluctant to work on any other genre. His two great films attested to his great genius.
Maybe I'm taking too much credit for this. Yes, I was the one who started it. I saw the potential.
Akkad's postmodern cinematic project attempted to give American audiences a rare balance between horror films about a serial murderer on the one hand and serious epic films on Arab history with its relation to the European domination on the other. The vision Akkad presented was meant to teach tolerance and pave the way for intercommunication among culture on the basis of mutual respect. Mustapha Akkad's son, Malik al-Aqad, stressed that this vision was so important to his father.
His films are living legacies to his passion and his artistic brilliance. And his family is a living legacy to his love and strength of character. And his legacy in general is this bridge of understanding which we continue to build between the East and West. And I know his dream and his goals were not his personal dreams and goals. They were the dreams and goals of his people, his culture, his religion. And so it's upon us now to continue this dream. And I know it's alive in so many people. It's affected so many young filmmakers all over the world. And for me personally, when I look in my brother's eyes, Zaid, or when I look in my father's grandchildren's eyes, Tariq and Mustapha, I see my father's eyes, and I know that through us that he will live on, and not only in us, but in the hearts of everyone that was touched by him, and the numbers are too many to even count.
Moreover, Akkad's other purpose was to show the truth about Arab civilization and to dispel myths about Islamic religion. Still, he will forever remain a torch leading the way for upcoming generations of movie viewers and filmmakers towards a cinematic world that knows how to create a harmony between art and noble causes, and to teach how sublime art can triumph over bigotry and terrorism. That's why Al-Aqad will definitely go into history books as a true genius and a pioneer who mastered the art of chronicling the intensity of the cinematic moment.